All right, we're ready when you're
live right now. All right, we are live at Charlie's Foreign Car, and Daniel's eating pizza, chicken wings. All right. Today we have, so we're doing something a little bit different. We've got, can you see this, Eric, from my phone that I'm walking through?
Yeah, you see the diagram.
Okay, cool. So we got a wiring diagram pulled up on this car, and today we're having Jose and Gianni are our team leaders. And what we're learning about here, Felipe, open your book there to page 1. Perfect. Can you actually page 2, please? So what we are learning about are some PIDS, and what we want to do is we want to figure out and deep learn about each and every single one of these PIDS. So today we're going to be on engine coolant temperature sensor. And what we're going to do is we're going to, here's the car. It's a 2016 SLK 300. We have the Autel plugged in right here, just on global OBD2. We're on live data. And Gianni and Jose are going to plug into live with the Pico. We're going to plug into the, you know which wires you're plugging into?
So that green and yellow.
Green and yellow at the ME.
Intake air sensor right at the throttle.
No, we're not doing intake air. We're doing coolant temperature.
At the sensor, the charge air at the intake, the green and yellow goes to it.
Okay, so these are all one thing. So this is like a ground,
Find that splice,
or a common ground, or a common power.
Oh, here we go. We'll just go to this green.
Oh yeah, that one says minus on it. So that's the common ground on all those sensors.
So is that one ground location on the body, or going back to the ME?
Oh, go back to the computer.
We're gonna go back. We're gonna go to pin 11 on the computer. I don't know if you can. Let me see if my phone will zoom in on that. We're going to pin 11 on the ME. That's the ground. And then this is, so it's a 2-wire coolant temp sensor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a gray yellow on pin 2. And that goes to 86 as our signal. Pin 86 in the ME. All right. So are we clipped into those wires? Not yet.
All right, so 86 is going to be a positive value, or is it a negative value?
It's 86 is the signal.
Okay.
86, it says signal right there on the DME. I don't know how I'm going to be able to. Let me see if I can. Can you see that?
Or if you're going to measure on one side of the sensor or the other, would you expect to see power there or ground?
We would expect. What would we expect to see at pin 86? Is the question? That's your question?
Yeah.
I'll let you answer it, Gianni. Just talk right into that mic.
What would we expect? So if it's a signal, probably 5 volts. That's what I would guess, between 0 to 5.
Yeah, I would kind of expect to see that. Well, not if it's plugged in. If it was unplugged, possibly, right? Open circuit.
Then it go to 5. If it was unplugged, it just goes straight to 5.
That's what I would expect it as well.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of the sensor, it's going to be a ground, maybe a floating ground, 100 millivolts or something, maybe not even that, coming back, right? So the signal is the voltage on this car. Is it going? What's the voltage going to do as the engine gets hot? What do you expect?
It's going to start to go down.
Okay. Yeah. So it's going to go down. That's going to indicate that the temperature is going up.
What I want to do is
Nice.
I want to look for the wires right now.
So what's our scan data say right now? What's the coolant temperature? Something around 20, maybe 20 degrees, hopefully. What's the weather like there? Probably warmer than 20 degrees outside.
We're gonna. Yeah, Mike. Now I do. Yep. Sorry. We're getting out of. We're actually logged in as Mercedes Benz, so we're gonna get out of Mercedes Benz, and we're gonna go into OBD2. There we go. Yeah,
hey, you guys in the shop, when you're looking at the temperature values, are you using Fahrenheit or are you using Celsius typically?
What's everybody using?
I use Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit?
Everybody pretty much uses Fahrenheit.
Oh, all right. I'm the odd man out. I'm gonna have to do some conversions.
I just did auto scan. The host may add you.
What's the color?
There you go.
Yellow, gray.
You have gray, yellow, and then green, yellow.
All right. So what's the coolant temperature right now on the scan tool? Just wondering.
Hold on. It's we're getting out of Mercedes and we're entering OBD2 right now.
Okay.
So we're still doing this thing. Hey Jax, can you see? I'm backstage right now with my phone. Can you put me on that way? Yeah, there we go. Eric can see our Autel screen live. And while we're doing this, Eric, too, we can also just do a screen share with the Autel if you want.
Okay.
I don't know if it'll let me. We just got into this thing, so I could stop it. Yeah. It's easier if I go like this. I can try doing it sideways.
So I have some questions about the testing location. Do you think it's best to test at the ME? I mean, it's easier on that car, obviously, because it's right up top.
The sensor is
But
buried way down in there. And when I looked at the procedure, how to take it apart, it says disconnect steering shaft, remove the starter, and it's just buried way down there. Yeah, he's laughing.
yeah, but that's also because it's way down there. There's a very good chance that it could have damaged harness, right? So, but you should be able to see that up at the ME, right? Just keeping that in mind. The open circuit, so possibly before you get started, once you get connected, what might you want to do? Just maybe, I don't know. You can't really unplug it. So how would you do an open circuit? You can't really. And so there's always going to be a load in the circuit, so you're never going to see that 5.
Daniel had a good one.
You can always just cut the wire.
You could. That is an answer. There is a solution. I mean, it's not silly yet. Thinking outside the box, so you keep all your options in the back pocket. Especially, I mean, if you're gonna, would you try and test the harness in different sections? I might cut the wire and overlay a wire down to it, right? That might be a solution as well, especially rodent damage or harness damage.
Does everyone understand what Eric is saying? It should let us. The key's on. For whatever reason, the OBD2 test is not working on this car. The OBD2. No, it's not.
You may
Hit
need to
VCI. Click the VCI button.
may need to turn it off or unplug the VCI and come back in.
The Bluetooth isn't connected on it. That's why.
Oh.
Paired. Now, see how it went green? Okay, now we're in. Now we're going to do it. Dude. Yeah, we're just going to go back through Mercedes instead of trying the EOBD.
Just stay with the Mercedes values.
Yeah, we'll look at the Mercedes values instead of the the OBD2 generic.
Yeah, I would expect
not letting
them
us
to be
connect generically.
the same. They may not update as fast, but the Mercedes will. And so things to think about with coolant temperature. So what value is this PID? Anyone have any idea what value the coolant temperature plays in the whole scheme of engine management?
Maybe try
Oh, you guys in the back row, I can just see your face. You're just like,
right now.
really? You're asking me this question? That's you guys.
Here, I'm going to send the mic back there. Send the mic back there.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, the question is, what role does engine coolant temperature play in the grand scheme of things with regard to engine management?
I'd say for like fuel trims and stuff, it's gonna adjust based on temperature.
Absolutely.
For emissions.
Yeah. Just formation of atomized fuel. Colder, you're not going to get that formation, right? You're not going to get atomized fuel. It's going to be big globs of droplets of fuel sticking to the cylinder walls, and so cold start going to need some enrichment. It's also going to have an effect on what else? Adding fuel, timing, right?
Yeah.
So during cold start, it's going to roll that timing a little more toward TDC, not before. Because if it's hitting too early, that's going to cause mechanical load on the starter. And then during hot start, we got a faster spinning engine. It's going to go ahead and start advancing a little bit, right? So plays an effect on timing and the amount of fuel that's added, for sure. Old ass Volkswagens, right? Or even BMWs. Anyone working on a M30 or S38 with the bad coolant temperature sensor, just running pig rich. It's basically open circuit, just fuel almost dripping out of the exhaust. That's early Motronic for you. But and I think even Volkswagen had the little tester for adjusting timing. So on one side, it's got I think it was 25,000 or 2,500 ohms. And then on the other side, it was like 250 or 500. I can't remember. But you put that in for checking your base timing on Volkswagen Digifont. I know, it's funny. It's funny shit. Timing? Who checks timing? So yeah, fuel mixture and timing, pretty important. The main thing is just to understand what to look for and what's a known good value. How it's going to react. I can get how these guys doing. We hooked
They're
up,
still chipping away at it.
poking and prodding, squeezing.
Yep.
Somebody's going to make it a girlfriend.
We'll see.
Max.
All right. When's the last time any of you ever looked at a coolant temp sensor value on a scope?
I don't think or has anyone here
What's that?
looked at a coolant temp sensor value? Yeah, a very long time ago.
Yeah.
To never is what we're saying.
Yeah. I mean, the sensors have gotten pretty good to the point where it's kind of rare to see a failure. But you can definitely have skewed values. And it's usually related to rodents or harness damage, right? You get excess resistance or short to ground, or intermittent shorts to ground. That's when things get a little crazy. So that's since we're doing deep learning on the sensor, which is probably one of the least dynamic or exciting sensors in the whole system, but it's still it can be, because it's ignored often, it can be one of the most challenging, right? Because you're not looking at it very often. What's the default value? Oh, someone's sneaking up behind you guys. Oh, look out.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to show Eric here what we're messing with, so he can see what we're doing.
Yeah, so it's this thing's buried. Obviously, it's down.
Yeah, and this is just the ME wires, right?
Yeah,
we're not even trying to get down to the sensor.
Yeah, so that was my question though. Is like if there's a problem with the wiring harness, how is that going to look from up here? Is it easier to see that at the other end? I think it's easier to get to the sensor for diagnostic value, right? It might be you look at my pen, stole from my daughter. But from a diagnostic value, getting all the way to the end and then seeing what's available down there, being able to unplug the sensor and look at a default value or what you're actually getting in an open circuit situation. But like you said, it's you got to have a pretty good reason to go down there. Does this car have a radiator outlet temperature sensor? I was just
Radiator outlet temperature sensor. It has radiator shutters.
okay. So radiator shutter, that's your coolant temp and your radiator. This most likely has a radiator outlet temperature sensor too on the lower hose.
Here, let's just look at the lower hose. Lower hose. So there's the upper. Here's the lower right here. This has one of those funky mid lower hose. Lower hoses.
Bypass, yeah.
The bypass. Where is there a sensor down there? Is there a sensor in that thing? So there's no sensor in the actual hose, like how BMW puts them in.
Yeah.
And then, but maybe if we go back, but if we go to the reservoir, then that's not the lower hose temperature. If we look underneath the turbo, there's a... Let's see. We're hooked in.
All right.
Why don't we let's get the Pico on it.
So my question there, I mean, that brings us right back to the use of the engine coolant temperature sensor, is that shutter, and what when it's going to open and close those shutters, right? Because this thing has probably got some kind of, is it electric coolant pump on this or is it mechanical pump?
It looks like it's mechanical. I'm trying to identify it here somewhere.
But no fan clutch. Got electric fan, no fan clutch.
Got an,
right?
got an electric fan. It might be an electric water pump.
That would make sense. So the
'Cause
temperature, what do you expect the temperature on this thing to be when it gets to operating temperature? What are you guys looking at to expect? Anyone?
Huh?
What's the temperature range of the last thermostat you did?
Let's pull this thing all the way up here. Like that. That's better. All right. What's the question again, Eric?
Oh, I was just wondering, so we've got electric coolant pump, we've got radiator shutters, possibly have some kind of radiator outlet modeling, whether it's an actual temperature sensor or a model, right? So that kind of lends itself to giving us a lot of clues as to what temperature we would expect to see at operating temperature. Well, I bet you this has a 2-bar radiator cap as well. Which would lend me to believe that you're probably going to see somewhere around 95 to 105 at operating temperature degrees Celsius. So, but that's going to be
like 185, 190 Fahrenheit.
Let's see. I'll just call it 100. That's going to be 212 degrees Fahrenheit. 212. That's about 100 degrees. So it's going to be somewhere between 95 and 105 is what I would expect to see. So that'd be 212 degrees for you guys. That's what I would expect. And that's just something to think about. Keeping that in mind, because if it does have a lower, that temperature, it's going to close those radiator shutters up to about that temperature. Then it'll start opening it up, right? And then it's going to run the coolant pump a little bit here and there intermittently, right, to keep it. And why are they doing that? Why is that temperature going up so much?
They want to keep it at 212 as much as they can.
Pardon what?
They want to keep it at like 212 as much as they can.
They want to keep the bottom end hot. The bottom.
Yeah.
End. So most of the time you've got cross flow heads, right, and an open deck. So we're trying to keep the top end as cool as possible, keep the bottom end as hot. So there's less friction with a hotter bottom end. That's going to lower the load on the engine and essentially lower CO2 emissions. This is all about CO2 emissions at this point, right? Anytime you can take load off of the engine, you're reducing CO2 emissions. That's why there's no fan clutch. Got rid of that right away, right? Coolant pumps now electric. Boom, there's another load off the engine. We're reducing CO2. Closing the shutter for the radiator. All that air is not coming in under the hood and becoming a big parachute, right? It's going around the car. That's reducing load on the engine. And the coolant temperature sensor is right in the middle of all of that stuff. So for CO2 emissions reduction, there's your temp sensor. But again, we don't see a lot of failures with those, but there's failures with other stuff, cooling efficiency, the radiator shutters working properly. If there is a model for temperature at the radiator outlet, what's the target number on that at operating temperature? This is a good number because you can use it for AC as well, and you can also use it for turbocharging.
You're saying at the top of the, like after it went through
What's
the radiator,
difference?
temperature?
From the ECT to the radiator outlet, there's going to be a temperature difference.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about it. We're going, so the coolant temperature sensor is usually up in the cooling system, up at the top where it's the hottest, right?
Yeah.
And then our radiator outlet comes out of the radiator. So now we've reduced some temperature.
Yeah, so I would say about 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
Perfect.
I don't know what that is.
Oh,
in Celsius.
Fahrenheit? Oh, no.
No?
Got to start using the metric system, man. You could have won with that. 30 degrees C, which is 86 degrees.
Oh, okay.
86
Wait,
degrees Fahrenheit.
You're saying from the engine coolant temp sensor to the outlet of the radiator is 86 degrees difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big difference. I would expect like maybe 20C or 15C, but
No, the radiator should be dropping, when it's working, it should be dropping 30 degrees. And the same, you can use that same number for your AC condenser up front. It's going to drop 30 degrees. You want to see a 30 degree temperature drop from inlet to outlet. So, and then on your intercoolers, it's kind of tough. They're usually about 20, when they're not the most efficient.
Okay. We are ready. My phone keeps on blanking out, so you guys can't see. I'm backstage. My phone keeps on cutting out. So anyways,
so
you did it.
What's our coolant temperature right now? What's the value?
Our coolant temperature right now on the Autel is 76 degrees Fahrenheit. The range, interesting. The range, I find this a little interesting. Why does it say 167 to 230 is the range? You would think it needs to be like
that's probably the operating range, because it we've already kind of established that we're shooting for about 212 degrees of operating temperature at 100 degrees C, right? So that's 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's kind of your operating range.
So is it not gonna budge on the Pico until it hits 167?
Oh no, it's gonna budge. It's gonna be really slow. That's what I'm gonna say. This is not a dynamic test. You want about 5 minutes of time base across the screen.
Okay, so right now we have 8 minutes of time base on the screen.
Good.
Right down there. We've got 50-second divisions. And right now we've got 132 millivolts on the signal wire, 132 millivolts. And then on the ground wire, we have, 93 millivolts. And that right now the key's on, the engine's off, and we need to start it right now.
Wait a minute. So it's 100. Wait. You've got how many millivolts on there?
132 millivolts.
I don't think so.
It should have been, you think it should be like 5 volts?
Nope. 2.5, 3.5, something like that.
Yeah, right now it's let me just do
Unless this is a PTC.
Let me hit play.
Could be PTC.
Okay.
But it's a Bosch system, so it's unlikely.
Hold on, now the engine's idling, so we can barely hear you. What were you saying?
Well, I was just wondering, unless it's a positive temperature coefficient, right? Which is unlikely, because that's usually used in climate control. So I think you're a little short on voltage.
Okay, let's see what happens after I started it here.
Okay.
Because now it's doing. Now I don't know if you can see that. Can you put me back in the thing?
Hey, we got one escaping back there. Get him.
Yeah, we can share the screen. Here, we're just gonna share the screen instead.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it. I got too much shit in my hands.
Engine speed is 800.
That's fine. So our engine coolant temperature on the Autel is at 111 degrees, 113 right now.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, then you are at the right temperature. 113 already. So that's going to be, that's 113 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes, 113
Oh.
Fahrenheit.
Oh no.
And then, I wonder if I don't have enough. When we chose this 5 minutes, 8 minutes, we're not getting a very good. I don't know if you
Okay.
can see in our
Look.
screen right now,
Yeah.
but the thing is, okay, yeah. So I just zoomed in. You could see I'm at couple hundred milliseconds right there.
Yeah.
And my waveform gets super choppy.
Right.
I bet if I do
Yeah.
the what?
If you zoom out a little bit here.
Yeah, but if I zoom out, so if I just
look
click
at your
the
range.
zoom out,
So you got 2.8, right? And negative 1.3. So you're, interesting.
here I'm gonna keep zooming out, and then you can see.
What's the sample rate here?
So I bet right now, if I took this 50-second division down to like
5,
10,
or just
5
take the
seconds.
voltage. Take the voltage value down to 5.
Okay, voltage value down to 5. Let's see what that does.
Let's just see what it does. It's probably going to cover the whole screen, but this is interesting. That's nutty.
Okay, so that's down to 5.
That's not what you expected.
Let's see what that does if we zoom into that. Is that any? It's a little bit better, but still not great.
So that voltage value that you're seeing there, that's an average.
The what?
Basically what's going on, right? You're looking at the voltage value that you were getting is an average. Does the scan tool give you any voltage value as far as what it's expecting to see? Because some of them do.
Yeah, let's see if this one gives a voltage value. Coolant temperature signal voltage right there. Yeah, it's 1.53 volts.
1.53 volts. Yeah, that's what I would expect. 1.53 volts. And it's probably dropping, right?
Yeah, and we just I don't know. I guess we just can't find that.
I'm not 100% sure you're on it.
On the wire, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Well, wiggle that signal wire. Let's see if we're on the wire. Look in there and see if you can see a.
So over on the channel labels, over on the left here, you can't see my pointer, huh?
No.
Oh, all right. So, under rulers, so you got your channel.
That just changed something. Did you disconnect it? Okay, it just went open for a second.
Oh, it didn't. It went open and closed. Look at that. It went nutty here. It went positive and negative.
Let's just see what happens if we put a smaller time base on it. If it cleans up the signal or not. Go down. I mean, this is just a minute.
That's 5 seconds per division. Yeah.
Oh, that looks better. What's our voltage on that line? So right now it's 0.064 on the blue line.
That is
what's our voltage over there?
Way.
Still 1.3.
1.3.
But it's almost getting to 10.
That
But is this the
something else
ground?
entirely.
Is this the signal or the ground?
Green is ground.
Ground. So
Green is
we're
ground.
looking for the B, the red. Okay, so what's the red channel say? 0.094.
Here, what's your coolant temperature reading on the scan tool right now?
What's
and the voltage of the scan data?
the voltage of the scan? The voltage of the scan data is what? 1.2 volts.
1.2 volts, and what does it say it is in temperature?
What's the temperature? 156.
156 Fahrenheit.
156
that's gonna
Fahrenheit.
be, is it close to 80 here? Hold on a second. Hold on. 156. Yeah, that's 68 degrees C. At about 80 degrees C, we could even stop, open that connector and do a resistance measurement through the pins, and you should probably see something around between 250 to 400 ohms at 80. So Bosch is really good about giving you two specs, one at 20 and one at 80, right? Because some earlier systems only run up to 85 degrees thermostat, and there'll be systems that are usually running a 1.4 bar cap. But I mean, some of the later systems with the higher pressures, they're not running all the way up to 2 bar, but
so it's that when this thing runs across, this is like the car's getting warmed up right now.
Yeah,
if you look at that, those two lines, they're not changing, but something has to be changing, right?
But it's signaling something. There's an inductive kick going on there.
Yeah, and that's the blue line is the ground wire, and the red line is the power wire. So we want to double check that. That's correct. So our B channel is hooked up to our pin 86, and that the color of that wire is green and yellow.
No, gray.
Okay, I'm sorry, gray and yellow. Okay, and then the A channel is hooked up to green and yellow, and that is the ground. And the ground's super. It's it's going up to like 3.5 volts, and it's going down to negative 1.5 volts. So, I mean, that's kind of sort of like our 5 volt, right?
No, but it's not. You're not hitting that. I mean, if you're looking at the scan data, this should be adding up to roughly the same value, right? But it's going to be. You'll have some hash in there. Actually, can I when you guys get to, hold on a second here.
You said you want to get to 86 degrees?
No, I want to get to 80, which will be 176.
176 degrees. What's it at?
Now it's 168. So now
it's at 168 right now.
That's 80.
Okay, so you're close. So you get to we'll call it 175. How about that? Nice even number ish. When you get there, maybe just shut it down, let the main relay drop out, maybe unplug the connector, and then or back.
Well,
rope.
we can't. We can't get to that connector from here. It's got to go up on a rack.
Take it off the ME, and you can measure the resistance through the sensor, which is what you.
Oh, you mean just? Oh, I see. Just disconnect the ME. Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Bosch will give you a spec. Usually, it's 20 degrees C and 80 degrees to account for the systems that are running cooler temperatures. But this is going to be a hotter temperature car. We even see that in the spec on the scan data that it was looking to go up, above the 212 that we expected to see. 212 degrees Fahrenheit, that is. So that would be
sure.
one way to check.
We're going to pick up the engine speed real quick, Eric, to bring it just to get a little bit hotter. We may not be able to hear you because the engine's too loud, but it'll only be for like 10 or 20 seconds. And we'll bring it to 175.
Okay.
Zip. Okay, we're at 175. Go ahead and shut it down.
Shut it down. All right. I'm gonna ask the team, the class, what do you guys think of this? What's your opinion of this signal? Is that a good signal? Is that a bad signal?
So we're testing a known good car, right?
Okay.
And part of the reason why we're testing a known good car is so we can see what known good signals are.
Exactly.
But I have no idea I don't know what any of that means.
This is not right. That is my opinion. This is not right. I would so let me can I grab this for a second? Can I present for a second?
Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna just grab something real quick. I'm gonna share my screen.
No, because it's not going above 20 volts. It's not going above the voltage range, which is 100 volts. So if it's not going over 100 volts, we don't need to use the attenuator.
Okay, let's see. No, yeah, you don't need to use the attenuator. Are you using an attenuator?
Oh, fuck. You know what? Oh, fuck.
Yeah, so multiply that by 10.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. Let's just go. Dude. Let's go to B. Let's go to channel B. Hold on. Just leave it on there. Fuck it. Probes. Attenuator. 20.
I wasn't even here, dude.
Okay, so look, now what it does is it puts it at a 200 volt range. Good call, Noah. That's a good Noah found a nice work, Noah. All right, see, this is part of training. This is part of training. Usually what ends up happening is you screw something up, right?
So you guys are you're on the 1 right now, right? 1x, no scaling.
Yeah, so this is so here, let's see what the new one looks like. It's the attenuator is for if you're going over voltage. This is a 100 volt maximum scope. So if you want to check something to 400 volts or 200 volts, you have to use this or else you'll fry the scope out.
So starter, alternator output.
Inductive kick in an injector, inductive kick on a primary coil. Come on, baby.
It's a loaded resistance, right? So it's actually going to do some work. And then it's a known
loaded resistance
value.
The system. Okay.
Yes.
So the Pico will automatically do the multiplication for you.
Capacity, whatever.
So you shouldn't be attenuated at all, right?
Okay, so now we have the attenuator. I don't know how to turn it off.
Just go to 1. Just go to hit that 1x.
1x?
Yeah.
No scaling. Okay, got it. 10-4. Okay, so now our voltage on the red line is 1.142. Is that what our voltage is on the? Okay, our voltage is on the Autel is 1.06, but that's with the key off. Is the key on right now? Okay, so the key's on.
Okay.
So we'll make sure.
That's probably the resistance coming through the wires, anyways.
So we could bring this down and right into the middle of that. It's 1.07. Boom! It's 1.07. It's exactly
1.07 is 175. Exactly right. So you can put that down in your notes. That would be 80 degrees C. You would see 1.07.
1.07 volts. So now if we watch the engine get hotter from 175, we should watch this.
So 175 being equal to the 80 degree Celsius test point that Bosch lays out. having a known value, since most of Mercedes systems are Bosch, and then you'll see a lot of Porsches Bosch, and BMW mixes it up a little bit, but even Denso will follow the same kind of layout. But knowing 1.075 is 175, that's gonna be kind of easy to remember. 175,
175, 1075.
Yeah. Perfect. So that would put that in your notes as a known good value. It's nice to have checkpoints like round 0.7 volts. I'm expecting to see about 100 degrees C. At 0.55, I'm going to see about 106, 107, 108, somewhere in there, about the top end of that. So let me show you what I got going on here. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share a window. I'm going to go this one right here. Share this. All right. You guys see that? Are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
This is I did this earlier today. This is a dual sensor on a super new, just wicked cool 2003 E53 X5 4.4 liter. I know. Just contain yourself. It's all fury. The man truck. So they have a dual sensor. One is for the engine operating system, DME, and the other one's for the instrument cluster. So channel A is the engine coolant temperature value, right? And you see at the bottom here, I've got a little over something like 7 minutes, right? And then channel B is the one going to the instrument cluster. So it was kind of cool to be able to look at both of those at the same time and compare them. What would you guys say about this? I'm starting off somewhere around, just below 2 volts, right? So based on what we know, 1.075 is 180. So I don't even think I took note. I think it was like 40. I think when I looked at it, it was like 43 degrees C. So not super cold. But as it warmed up, it took a little while. Now what's going on here? So what do you see here? This starts cooling down again. I'm only 2 minutes in. And what's going on here? Anybody have any idea? Why would this happen? Why at 7 minutes? I'm at what value here? Let me see. This is going to be. I should be able to go.
Yeah, Gianni just said turn the heater on. You turn the heater on?
No, I had the AC off, climate control off completely. What do we know about this?
The cooling fan come on?
No, cooling fan started to run when I got to about 0.5 volts, which is about 109, 110 degrees. Cooling fan came on 30%. I have a little video that I took. I just haven't been able to get it over here. It's on my phone, of me sticking my hand down in the fan clutch, because it's still got a fan clutch because we're that old school, and slowing it down, right? And to the point where I stopped it. That's me trusting that fan clutch. Fan clutches, they rarely lock up, but yeah, you'll know pretty early if they are. But this car, same engine, that 4.4 liter, the M62 TU, last year the M62 TU, so the best one they made of that. What's it got in the cooling system?
Oh, it has that MAP thermostat.
Right. So when it's warming up, it does a couple. That's when it sets the fault for that map thermostat, right? So it opens them, heats up the wax element, opens the thermostat, closes it, opens it, closes it, and it wants to see the temperature, go back down, right? Just briefly. We're not even at op temp yet, so it'll do that 3 times, and that's where this is the area where your map thermostat will set the fault, usually on warm up. And then it'll open it and it'll keep it open for a while and then it'll drop it, and then at that point thermostat will be open anyway, right? Because it'll get to op temp from here, and it goes up pretty fast, and up to about 110 degrees, which is kind of nutty. And if I turn on the AC and the fan comes on, 30%. It's fan clutch isn't locked up. Fan is running at 30%, and it's running at 110 degrees at half a volt. Is that surprising? It's kind of crazy, because that's not an electric water pump. It's a mechanical pump. There's no shutters. But even, that is like the last year. That's as good of control they can have over the cooling system. But the dual sensor was actually it's a pretty reasonable sensor. It's probably the last one that you'd have trouble with. And from that point on, what happens to the coolant ECT value comes out over one sensor and is broadcast over a CAN network to any module that needs it. So you no longer have a dual sensor. But that was probably the last one that would give you some trouble in the testing. So let's look at the instrument cluster here. I messed around with this thing, and my cluster was pegged at hot, right? And then once it got to operating temperature, it went to the middle. Does this green signal look anything like your signal? If we bounce back over here, kind of does, huh? I mean, you guys were zoomed way in there, but
here let's take this guy. We can zoom that out.
Yeah, so that's not too bad. I mean, that's pretty reasonable. You're on your ground side, So that's and what are you at right now? You're at 1.2, and we said
1.22, and then the scanner
it's cooling down.
Yep, it's cooling down, and it's the temp is at 152, and it's the voltage on the scanner.
Started it up right now, and then did a long time base. Then you'd start to see the ramp, like I've got going on, where it's actually dropping down. Now, I'm just going to tell you, this might make some people that don't look at, those old Motronic systems I was telling you about, where they would just go pig rich. What you would see is a huge drop. The sensor would be going, and then it would just go boom to zero for a solid 5-10 seconds, and then come back up. That was the dropout you're looking for. It's not like you were having to, put glitch capture on or anything like that. It was pretty obvious that there was a problem with that sensor. It either ground out to itself or just go open circuit, and then you'd have full system voltage. So it's either going to go one way or the other, typically. But all this hash in here, what's going on with that? I mean, this is pretty big compared to what you have now on yours when the engine's running. Well, I'll tell you, this is another thing I have some pictures of off my phone, but I didn't get them on here yet. I could probably plug this thing in real quick.
Well, we don't have too much more time.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm curious to what those were, because we had those on the other channel when the attenuator was on the other channel.
Yeah.
And then now when we remove the attenuator, the other channel starts looking more normal.
Well,
the other one was
your attenuator multiplied that by 10. So what you were seeing, the hash was multiplied by 10. So that's actually what you had is pretty reasonable. This is not reasonable. I mean, you're looking at it, I'm seeing voltage up to 5 volts, and this is not attenuated. This is a 1-to-1, right? Comparatively. The coolant temp sensor, the dual sensor on that engine is located right in the front, right behind the water pump, right next to the what? Throttle, electric throttle. This is inductive kick from the throttle motor. So later I went and I took, here, let's see here. Let me come over to, I can go back here. Okay, yeah, I'm going to exit there and I'm going to come back into here. And I'll show you what I did. I put a piece of foil. All right. Put a piece of foil between the sensor that I was measuring. Oh wow, look at that. And the probes. Just a piece of aluminum foil, like you wrap your sandwich in, right? Or like you guys are going to use to wrap the leftovers from lunch today, take home. And that made all the difference in the world from what we had to that. I didn't change anything else. I just slipped a piece of foil in there. And I guess if I'd have tried a little harder, so now look at the green side, it looks really good, but the red side has more exposure. So get some foil in there a little better. So that keep that in mind too. When you're starting to see lots of like frequent spikes and noise you would not expect, what's in the proximity? That throttle motor is right there. That's two motors, inductive kicks. That's stepper motor or two motor, depending on the type of throttle, and you're going to see that in your signal. So shielding becomes an issue, and this is the kind of stuff that guys would get caught up in all the time. I was like, oh man, look at all this noise in there. This sensor is bad. Like when a coolant temperature sensor goes bad, it's really obvious. It goes way high or way low for a big chunk of time. I mean, that's where it's implausible. Or it just sits and doesn't move at all. But the model shows that the temperature is changing in the engine, right? We've got other sensors in the car to kind of double check this sensor. What other sensor would double check? You could double check this ECT. Like if you just want to do a quick check, like you've looked at it with the scope. This might not be. I would use scan data first before I go scoping it. But if I was going to quick check this, how would I do that with scan data?
What other?
So
ambient temperature sensor.
Ambient temperature sensor is good. What else do you have on there? That's a good one. When? On cold start, right?
Intake air temp.
Exactly. Intake air temp or ambient temp on cold start before everything starts. Everything's going to be the same temperature, right? Coolant temperature, air temperature, intake air temperature, they're all going to be about the same. So they should be within 5 degrees of each other, right? If you're looking at it on cold start, you just check the plausibility. When it's getting hot, if it's got oil temperature, you could compare oil temperature too. Oil temperature is usually going to be a little higher, about 10, 15 degrees or so when it gets to op temp. But you can make sure it's plausible, and so you've got some double checks for that data, just to make sure you're in the ballpark.
So Eric, so to wrap this thing up, we need to have them draw the waveform. Which should just look like what should it look like?
I think it would look more like a smooth version of smooth version of the one that I just showed earlier.
So if it started, so what we don't really know is that where it started at, but it started high.
Yeah,
and then
probably going to start around
warmed up. It got lower, right? So it's kind of like, but we don't know exactly where it started. We could just wait 4 hours and then just recheck it at the end of the day just to see what it starts off at.
Throw a fan on it.
Throw a fan on it. Say it's two. Yeah, you can throw a fan on it, but ideally, like it's just going to be like this, right?
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
gonna. So if you I don't know if you
Right
can
now
see
it's
the one that
tapering
I've got up on
as
the
it's
screen.
off.
It starts at about 2 volts and it drops down, and eventually it's going to reach somewhere around 0.6 volts, right? Is what you
Okay, yeah.
guys
So
are
this is
expecting to see.
okay.
So from
So
2 to
same
0.6.
sensor.
And at 0.6, you're going to be right in that 212 degrees that we were talking about, which is 100 degrees C. That's kind of what you would expect to see on this. 95 degrees to 105 degrees, somewhere in there.
And,
Pretty normal.
and then what type of sensor is this?
It's an NTC, negative temperature coefficient sensor.
It's
So
an
negative
NTC.
temperature coefficient. So as the voltage drops, right? So you're getting you're getting less resistance to ground. As it heats up, it gets less resistance to ground. That grounds some of that voltage. So your voltage is going to drop, right? So the voltage is dropping as the temperature goes up. So the factor, if you look at the scaling from Bosch, it'll actually show the effective graph of your temperature scale versus the voltage scale going down. And those are the scales that engineers use because they don't like to go out into the shop and do some actual testing most of the time. And then they argue with you when you say, "Hey, it doesn't really work like that. There's an offset." In reality, has a little more resistance. So when you're tuning stuff, and there's like, "Oh no, it's supposed to be just like this." Like, no, you got connections and whatnot.
Okay, so then for next week, what we want to do, Gianni actually had a good idea. He wants to see an AFR sensor, which I think this car has an AFR sensor. I looked it up, and it says on the underhood label, it says WRHO2S /HO2.
That's a wideband heated oxygen sensor.
Okay, so wideband. So this is a wideband car. So we could do all that on this car, and next week it's going to be Felipe and Johnny doing that. Right? You guys hear that?
Felipe and Johnny.
Felipe and Noah. Felipe and Noah.
Felipe
next
and
week.
Noah.
The week after is Johnny and Daniel.
All right. So
no, we're gonna jump past all this, and we're gonna find whatever page the AFR sensor is on, and then we're just gonna do that. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna put. Actually, we could probably maybe use this if we could find this diagram. If we could find it in the diagram, we'll just use this, and we'll just use the same wires, and that's what we'll do next Tuesday.
Are you gonna do so you're just doing the front widebands, right?
Yeah, we can do the front. We do the front widebands, and then we could do the heated O2 sensor rear the following, just so it makes sense.
The heater circuit's probably going to be shared with the wideband and the rear sensors. Most likely, it's probably shared circuit.
Okay.
So
cool.
We'll probably have a little bleed over, but that one's going to be. You guys should study on that one. There's a couple of different approaches to that.
That might be like a 2-part series anyways, just because there's a lot of info to unpack on that.
So just to wrap up, what do you guys think? Is scoping the would you scope the ECT typically? You'd have to have a lot of data be implausible before you went to go and touch it. Right, you can see on live data that you can cross-reference and double check it for plausibility and function, and if it's not adding up, then you can go and look at it and see what part of the circuit is bad. You can start trying to shift some stuff around with our resistance test. Like, we'll unplug this way and we'll measure that direction. One end or the other, try and break down the circuit to see where your problem is.
Yes, and the whole reason why I wanted to start doing it this way is because this is exactly how the ME on this car is seeing the engine coolant temperature
Yep.
sensor, right? So it's something that we may not do frequently, but this is what the ME's like, how its eyes are operating. This is what it's seeing exactly. And as we get more and more into this stuff, there's going to be lots of different signals. So it's going to have to, it has a processing power of a very big processing power to figure everything out.
So that coolant temperature is a major part of this fuel injection map, basically. So coolant temperature will dictate, air and fuel injection time. Load is also in there, but engine temperature is engine speed and load, and then we have ignition events, right? But temperature falls right in the middle of that, and that's so it plays a major role in that mapping.
Cool. All right. Well, anything else for Eric, you guys, before we go back?
Probably not it's not nearly as cool as Brandon Stackler, but it'll get exciting. Useful information. Hopefully you guys took some notes on that. That's if you had any questions about ECTs, you shouldn't anymore. But we just don't test them enough.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Eric.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
We'll see you guys later.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. So let's keep this, put it and keep it with your notebook, either you or Felipe.